I'm June Lancaster, MD of Asset Wisdom Limited, and I'm joined today by Martin Rowe, who's the Chief Operating Officer for CPD certification. Welcome, Martin. It's really good to have you here.
Well, thank you for the invitation, June. It's nice to actually get out and speak to somebody in this day and age.
We know that from our client's point of view, CPD is very important, so it's really good to hear your views. And maybe to start with, you can sort of give us an explanation of who you are and what CPD certification is, what you do.
Thank you very much, June. We are a membership-based organisation. This is our 25th anniversary year, and our role is to act on behalf of our members to receive, assess, and if it's suitable, certify material for CPD purposes.
Martin, thank you very much for that introduction to this CPD service. It would be really good to have a little just understanding of your background, how you ended up where you are.
I spent 20 years working for a global corporate called Total, you may know from the oil industry. And one of the jobs I had there was to try to find ways of teaching people complex technologies simply. I managed to find a way of designing quite a lot of training processes that were entirely dependent on visual imagery and counting, because a great deal of the people that you come across in different parts of the world are, by our standards, functionally illiterate, and they need to learn in particular ways that suit them and suit the organisation that they're being employed by. A few years later, after some time buying and selling businesses, I joined CPD, and I've been there 8 years in this role, and I don't think I'm going to go anywhere else just yet.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. I said at the beginning that we know our learners want CPD certification of the courses. Many people say that, but what's the evidence that that's actually the case? Is there any?
We wouldn't have existed for as long as we have unless the members that came to us to ask for our help producing good CPD material were successful, and it brought them the return on that investment, the cost of the membership, which they actually get. And the fact that we've had many members for many years, and stay around for many, many years, is evidence for that. But of course, Pareto's law does apply in the world of CPD, and a good 80% of the working population are not members of a professional body. They're ordinary people. And for them, CPD is training and learning. And they do that to enhance their CV, to improve their career prospects, to get a pay rise, to go and get the promotion that they want, or possibly even to gain new skills so that they can go and start off on their own. And we predict that probably in the next 20 to 25 years, as AI becomes a dominant feature of modern society, employability will be entirely dependent upon you completing and retaining changed information throughout your working life. So CPD in some form or other will be a massive feature of the future.
Great. That's a really a good summary of CPD and what you see the future. And I think many people are looking at having external validation of learning as part of their offering, and that's very important to us, certainly. I think one of the other things that, and I suppose that goes back to the learning quality really, what's the quality of the learning is being tested. Even if you have a very clear quality assurance process internally, external validation is testing the quality of that learning and that the way that that's delivered, which is very important. The growth of online learning, fast forwarded by COVID-19, I have to say. How do you manage the sort of those kind of programs that are put forward to you in terms of online learning? Is there any difference to your processes?
The answer is it's the same process in the sense that, member submits the material, and instead of sending in lots of supporting documentation and PowerPoints and speaker notes and things like that, it's a username, a password and a URL. And the outcome is exactly the same in the sense that it's either good enough or it isn't good enough for certification at that moment in time. But I think before I go into that in more detail, I think there's an important point that we should just get over to everybody who's watching this, and it's the difference between CPD and qualifications. We're quite hot on this, and we put a paper out towards the back end of last year because people were starting to confuse CPD certificates that carried things like the word level 2, level 3 with formal qualifications, and that's what they most definitely are not there to do. CPD is about enhancing prior knowledge. It's not a substitute for a qualification. You can't go on a short CPD course and then present that to a prospective employer or someone like that in the vain hope that they're going to buy it as some form of qualification that's going to get you the job. To come back to your other point, once you recognise it's not a qualification, and we explain that to our members, we have a fairly standardised process of assessing every submission. Now this year I said we're going to see about 10,000 of those. Roughly, based on where we've gone with COVID, we're about middle of last year, we were running at about 35% of our material submissions were what I would call digital. So it's a blend of e-learning or it's some form of semi-face-to-face delivery delivered over a digital medium like Zoom or Teams or something like that. Now, that's now gone up to 45%. And it's not going to stop. It may modify as we come out of lockdown, because some of the more traditional forms of delivery, which have been completely suppressed, for example, conferences and exhibition speeches, will start to come back. And that did represent, and does represent, quite a lot of our membership need. So it may stick around the 45% as we grow back generally, but we don't see it diminishing. It's here to stay, and it's here to definitely be delivered. What our assessors look for are fairly standard things within any sort of submission, and when they send it in, they give us a submission form, and that submission form will check that the material's original. It's theirs. They're competent to have produced it, and they're competent to deliver it.
Martin, that was really good. I think the clarity of message between qualification and CPD is a really important one, because it can be very confusing for learners. I think that's an essential sort of clarity. And I think the comments about the increase in online learning and whether it will stay or not, I think what we've seen is that people who saw online learning or e-learning as a nice to have, COVID has made them think that maybe it's going forward, it's going to be an essential part of their learning offer. It's not just a nice to have now, it's important. Martin, I've got two more questions, I think, which I feel are important. I think one is around the process that CPD use in terms of applying for CPD certification of learning. How do you ensure that learning is up to date?
Up-to-dateness is a feature that's troubled us for a while, because we've seen lots of people coming to us with fairly old material in some respects. Now, I think it's important to also differentiate the difference between what CPD assessment and certification brings to the party. Is that our members are telling us, and we take it initially at face value, that they're competent in the area in which they're seeking to deliver knowledge. Where we have doubts, as I've said before, we ask for CVs, references and so forth. But recently we've introduced the concept of where we believe material is too old, we'll call it back in again, and say to people, look, this stuff's getting a bit hackneyed. We're being asked by members of the public to speak to you, and whilst we, obviously can't mention, their names and what have you, it's in everyone's best interest that you try and update the material in whatever form it's in, so that it can be modern. And it's a worst case scenario, which we would decertify it.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really helpful. One of the things that we know from personal experiences is really important to our clients is, though our learning is endorsed by one of the professional bodies, the CPD certification label is really important. Our learners are international learners, so they're all over the world. And that CPD badge gives them portability, probably is the word. So how far do you actually, do you provide CPD certification in other countries, or is it purely around the UK?
No, very much so. We're trademarked throughout the world. You name any country, and our trademark will now have been registered there. And we do have members throughout the globe, from Australia, China, Singapore, UAE, South Africa, North America. We are a truly global business.
Martin, thank you so much for that input. It's brilliant. I think there's a lot of lessons in there. There's certainly a lot of information, but things people can take away and really look at what they're doing, and we certainly will be doing that with what we're doing. So thank you so much. That's great.
Thank you very much for inviting me, June. I enjoyed it.